Joining us this evening, GVL Narasimha Rao, National Spokesperson and Member Electoral Reforms of the BJP. From Delhi, Ami Yagnik, Spokesperson of the Congress, live from Ahmedabad. Dr. Ajay Alok, General Secretary of the JDU, live from Patna. D. Raja, MP, Rajya Sabha, CPI, live from Delhi. And P. Chengal Reddy, Chief Advisor, Consortium of Indian Farmers Association, joins us live from Hyderabad. Ami Yagnik, we are going to discuss the nitty-gritties of the land acquisition bill that your party is so opposed to, and we'll really try and figure out why. But let's first start off with the premise. Would you agree that a smooth functioning of Parliament is essential for development?
Yes, of course. We believe in that. We have always believed in that there should be a smooth functioning of the Parliament. But as you saw in the last couple of years, especially in UPA 2, when we came up with bills, there was complete stalling of the Parliament by the BJP. Let me be very precise in pointing out September 2012.
No, that's fine. We're aware of that, Ami Yagnik. Is this a tit for tat?
No,
we're aware of the disruptions that the BJP had caused in Parliament, Ami Yagnik. But, you know, it's not about tit for tat. So the point is, when Venkaiah Naidu has gone out and spoken to all political parties trying to ensure smooth functioning of Parliament, your party has made it very clear that there's going to be agitation against the land acquisition bill. Tell us why.
See, if Mr. Venkaiah Naidu goes to all parties, well, it is a good gesture on his part, and he's supposed to do that. We also did that when we were in Parliament and are trying to see that disruptions don't take place. Sonia ji went specially to Sushma Swaraj ji to say that for the food security bill, that let the hunger end in this country. So let's not bring all those mannerisms and talk about them here. It is a part of a political career. You are supposed to do that as a leader. But here the point is that you are bringing an ordinance to amend the land acquisition bill. You are going completely anti-people, and Congress has brought this bill, especially the act, to see that the farmers benefit. It was a very draconian act of the 1894-74, and so we had brought this after a number of several decades, and keeping in mind that the compensation, rehabilitation, resettlement issues that affect the farmers, the people who sell the land, take a proper place in the act, and they are compensated. The act was brought just keeping in mind that everyone benefits in the country, not just bring about crony capitalism, which this ordinance is trying to do. So this
how is it, Ami Yagnik, that this ordinance is planning to bring in crony capitalism? Isn't this ordinance not only bringing in 13 acts of Parliament which were omitted in the previous Land Acquisition Act, which actually makes this act more robust? How are you saying it supports crony capitalism? Has the compensation to the farmers which is promised, has it been touched? Has it been touched? Because from the tone and from the way the Congress party is speaking is, you disrupted our sessions of Parliament, so we will disrupt yours.
No. Don't think on that lines. I'm just pointing out the fact that what they did while they were in opposition, they have just done damage by perpetuating a constitutional fraud continuously by stopping the Parliament.
How is this ordinance on the land acquisition going to promote crony capitalism?
No, now they cannot be so goody-goody. No, because you see the amendments they are trying to bring, they want to give away everything to the private companies, you know, that is the amendment which is the first amendment in the ordinance.
Do they want to give it?
Even do away with the social impact.
GVL Narasimha Rao, are you giving everything to the private companies? Or are you trying to push for corporate federalism?
The mode.
Can I?
The mode.
Competitive federalism, beg your pardon.
Modalities, all the amendments.
Ami Yagnik, let's allow GVL to respond to that.
Is bringing.
Okay.
Completely giving a go by all.
Okay, so GVL, the allegation from the Congress is that you're basically doing this because you want to give out freebies to the corporates.
I think there is a lot of misunderstanding about the proposed changes, or there is a negative propaganda which is quite deliberate, because the changes that are proposed, I can cite 5 or 6 reasons why they are strongly in favor, why they are actually promoting the farmers' interests. I think I will spell out some of these, and then we can have a discussion, more informed
discussion. Yeah, please do, and then we'll go across to Mr. Reddy on that.
Yeah. Okay. First, there are several drafting errors in the original bill where I think loopholes are there, where individuals and proprietorship firms can violate all the rules. It was only meant for companies. So there are several drafting errors which needed to be corrected, number one. Number two, there are 13 central acts in which compensation is not to be paid as per the provisions of the Land Acquisition Act of 2013. So in other words, a large number of cases of land acquisition outside the Land Acquisition Act land could be acquired at a much cheaper rate than what is provided for in this act. In this act, in rural areas, farmers get to the tune of
so
4
what you're
times the
saying
market
is that
value.
compensation-wise, it's going to benefit the farmers.
Let me just illustrate the points. Please, Tina, let me illustrate the point. It's important that people have the right knowledge. And this kind of misinformation campaign that has been going on, or half-baked knowledge about the entire issue, is actually creating negative perceptions. Third, I think development has been severely hampered in the last 20... please have patience to listen for a couple of minutes, Anand.
Well, that is Shankar Reddy. He had a point to raise, GVL Narasimha Rao, but Mr. Reddy, we'll give the BJP spokesperson another minute to bring out his points, and then we'll bring you in for the rebut. Yes, D. Raja, coming to you also. Yes, GVL Narasimha Rao.
And development has been hampered in the last 1 year. Okay, when the act became active in the year 2014, hardly any land could be acquired, and the states that were to complain first were the Congress-ruled states of Kerala, and Maharashtra and Haryana were being ruled by them until October last year. They were the most prominent ones who really complained about the problems, and this is a problem faced by every state. Third, land is being acquired only for 5 specific purposes. The exemption in this ordinance is only restricted to 5 areas, and all of them are pro-farmer, because they talk about rural infrastructure, rural electrification, rural roads, rural housing.
What will the implications of those exemptions be?
Please have the right information.
Yeah, GVL, so tell us, you're talking about these 5 specific areas which are going to be, under the exemption. What will the implications of that be?
No, you see, if the land is acquired for rural electrification and rural roads, who does it benefit? Does it not benefit the farmers? Does it not benefit the rural poor? Does it not benefit the rural people?
Mr. Chengal Reddy, your reaction. Does the fact that more central acts have been included mean that compensation will in fact be better for farmers?
See, it's not question of farmers. You see, I don't know why everybody says they want to uplift the farmers. Nobody has uplifted us. We are in serious problem. Even leave that aside. But the simple fact is, if government wants lands, whether it is farmers or others, they have laid down a procedure, replace the old act. That is one real good thing. The Congress also, whatever the bill is there, by and large, it's okay. Now, the proposed amendments, we do invite them, accept them to a many extent, as far as if it is concerned of defense, roads, or some of these national important things. But one small problem which we farmers are afraid is, when you generalize infrastructure as such, the government of India has to be little more specific. When you say infrastructure, you have to be clear whether this infrastructure is basically for a development which is taken up by government of India, or is it by a private sector. You see, the doubt comes here that the private sector has been acquiring lots of lands for over a period of time, making it as a business.
Mr. Reddy, I'm going to bring in D. Raja and Ajay Alok also into the discussion.
Can I clarify?
But a quick rebuttal from GVL Narasimha Rao.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Mr. Reddy, I appreciate your point. It's just that I want to bring in our other panelists also. We've raised GVL Narasimha Rao, quick counter to this, because it says infrastructure projects including public-private partnership projects where central government owns the land. Now he says it is very ambiguous. That is Mr. Reddy's question.
Yes, it has to be more clarified.
You see, the title will be with the government. In the infrastructure cases, the title will be with the government. So there is no question of it entirely going into private hands. So I think enough care has been taken to ensure the development of the country does not stop.
Anand, the
And we,
consent process
on paper, we may have given. No, Ami Yagnik, please understand, when all these provisions are meant to help the farmers and meant to create infrastructure in rural areas.
You know the problem, GVL Narasimha Rao, is
the Congress party is
problem,
actually
GVL Narasimha Rao, is the way that clause number 5 is worded.
Consent is
Because
given a go-by.
because I'm coming to the consent part. Ami Yagnik coming to the consent part in just a bit. Ami Yagnik coming to the consent part, because that particular clause itself says infrastructure projects including public-private partnership. It doesn't say where the central government owns the land. It doesn't say infrastructural projects only where it's a public-private partnership where the central government owns the land. It says including these projects. So that leaves a lot of space for ambiguity. D. Raja, Dr. Ajay Alok, your points in, please. D. Raja first.
Now, firstly, we are opposed to the ordinance. What was the urgency to issue an ordinance on a very substantive issue like this? Even the President of India had to take a critical view on the issue of ordinances. One should not forget, Parliament is supreme, government should respect Parliament, bypassing Parliament, undermining Parliament, behind the back of Parliament, government cannot take decisions.
Okay, we'll get GVL's response to that. We will. Yes, Mr. Raja, we'll get GVL's response to that, and we'll certainly talk, we will talk to the BJP about that issue. But
let me finish.
Yeah, but since we're talking about the land acquisition, let's hear your take
let me
on
finish.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Raja.
Let me finish.
Because and we will get GVL Narasimha after you finish, sir. Yes, sir. After you finish, we will get GVL Narasimha Rao to rebut that, because, like you said, not just the president, even the Honorable Supreme Court has raised this question: why the rush in bringing about an ordinance, especially on land acquisition, when you had a Parliament session coming forth? Yes, Mr. Raja, make your point. Yes, sir. And then we'll get GVL Narasimha Rao to them.
Yes, and the other issue is the concerned ministers did not take it seriously and did not think it was proper to engage with political parties in the Parliament to explain why it was necessary for government to issue an ordinance. That is where I question the government's functioning vis-a-vis the Parliament. Parliament cannot be ignored. India as a vibrant Parliament, one should be proud of India's Parliament. Whether it is smooth functioning or stormy functioning, Parliament should function. That is the spirit expressed by all the political parties in today's meeting also. I was present in the today's meeting. As far as this
Sir, let's get the BJP to rebut and answer that question, sir. Saying that if the Supreme Court of India has observed that an ordinance is essentially a power to be used to meet an extraordinary situation, the question is passing or the land bill or amendments to the land bill an extraordinary situation, GVL Narasimha Rao?
Yes, because you see, please understand, I think the economy needs to revive very urgently. We cannot wait.
No, the question is why the ordinance route?
We've already. No, an ordinance says, please, an ordinance has not been promulgated for the first time. The UPA had used
but why in this case and why the sudden haste? In December 2014, suddenly the haste, sir.
It's an instrument. It is an instrument available to the government, and it is a constitutionally acceptable instrument.
In an extraordinary situation.
No, but the question is every government in the past.
Why? The question is why. Of course, the government has the right to do it, and everyone knows that. But in this particular case, why?
No, because you have had an entire session, last session, being washed out.
Haven't you done that too? Hasn't the BJP sat in the opposition and completely washed out sessions of Parliament? Because what seems to be happening here is this constant political tit for tat.
Tina, I think we should be looking forward rather than really look for only reasons on which we should really fight over each other.
No, but you can't just use disruption as the only reasoning. That is disruption of Parliament and extraordinary
is a perfect legitimate form. Ordinances are a very perfectly legitimate form of legislation.
But
this
to be
has
used
been
in
used by
extraordinary
every
situations,
government.
sir.
There is
So
some
that argument
urgency.
doesn't stand countered at the moment. We would hold the government of trying to use the privilege of the ordinance or the tool of the ordinance to its convenience to escape
No,
more.
we are not discussing the main subject of. We are only discussing about everything else. Except I have not heard any comments from any panelists so far as to why they find this.
Yeah, so let's do
changes,
that. Dr. Ajay Alok. Let's get Dr. Ajay Alok in now, and your take on what is why there is going to be opposition, and we know it's going to be there because several parties have already announced an agitation in advance, before the budget session even starts tomorrow, specifically with regards to the land acquisition ordinance bill. Now, what is the objection? That's what GVL wants to know. That's what the BJP wants to know. Where are you objecting?
What are your specific
First of all, I am really surprised to hear from Mr. GVL that the ordinance, the bill which was there originally, it had some fallacies, so it needed to be corrected, and that's why this ordinance came. Mr. GVL perhaps do not know that this bill was reformed again in 2012 under the chairmanship of Sumitra Mahajan in the parliament. By Sumitra Mahajan, who is currently speaker, under guidance of Sushma Swaraj and Rajnath Singh ji, and then a concession in the parliament was taken that fine, this is the final bill where the interests of the farmers are going to be created, and I quote Sushma ji, 18th April 2013, she said it in the parliament that we have accepted this bill and we are going to support this because this bill just removes the land grabbers and the land mafias. Now when this bill was so much perfect in 2013 when it was passed by your approval, what made you change your mind? That means you are promoting the land mafias today. And 5 approval, why we do not allow this?
And Anand, I find it really, I find people are not speaking on facts.
You have lost the faith in taking the
consent
of the people.
Let us not,
earlier bill clearly said, earlier bill, please Mr. GVL, have some patience. Have some patience, I listen to you.
No, please comment on what you find objectionable about the proposed changes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, one by one I'm telling you. Earlier bill clearly said that we'll take consent in 80% cases where only private entrepreneurship is there and 70% cases where public-private entrepreneurship is there. New ordinance says no consent required, number one. Number two, the new ordinance do not justify anything about the social impact it will cause. What? We are living in India. It's a developing country. It's not a developed nation. Even in developed nation, the government do not acquire land. The private users, they go and themselves purchase. It's a settled norm in US, Canada, China, whom you are trying to emulate. Then what's the need for this ordinance? Third thing, why ordinance? Why ordinance?
Okay, Dr. Ajay Alok, we'll come back to the issue of why ordinance because yes, that's a larger issue, but you have brought out some specific points. GVL, yes, we'll come back to you, Dr. Alok. GVL, that the question of consent is a very valid and important one. Answer that first. Why remove that?
Yeah. What about Sumitra Mahajan?
Yes, I think that is the only point.
The bill.
Okay, let's just allow GVL to answer, please.
What about Sumitra Mahajan?
My counter question to everyone is, okay, this is the key change. Now please tell me the areas where this exemption is being allowed. What is your objection to this? Don't you think rural infrastructure is important?
But don't you think consent
rural housing is important? Is it no? Please, no. This is not this proposed this dropping of this 70% limit. Please wait. Please wait for your turn. I'm saying these 5 specific areas. Don't you think it's in national interest? It's in the interest of the farmers. It's in the interest of the rural people that we acquire land for irrigation projects, for rural roads, for rural electrification, for rural housing, for defense establishments. Where is there no national interest involved?
No, but Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, no one is questioning that these areas are absolutely intrinsic to national development. No one's questioning that. We are questioning, the panelists on the other side are questioning you on why not keep that, the part about consent intact. Those whose land it is should consent not be important. No one is doubting the fact that these areas are absolutely essential to national development. Yes, Dr. Ajay Alok, you wanted to come in on that.
No, it's not possible. The government, you see, the experience of 2014
has been that... GVL, please, you have to give Dr. Ajay Alok a minute to respond to that. We'll come back to you. Yes.
Taking a multi-crop land for any kind of acquisition is not allowed. It's not taken. Number two,
earlier the bill said that if a land is acquired and it is not used for the same purpose, it will be returned in the next 5 years if it is not used for the same purpose. The new ordinance says, no, it won't be returned. Where this land is going to go? Third thing, the 5 sectors you were
10
mentioning,
years.
what is the requirement of making making hotels in the rural areas? Do you think the hotels add to infrastructure? Now, what kind of industry you want to set up in private or in public-private? You have not specified that. So, unless the specifics comes, how can you impose your will but just by passing an ordinance? And you think that
Right.
Parliament is going to take
Ajay
it?
Alok?
No, you always knew that Parliament is not going to accept it.
Ajay Alok, I'm just going to allow GVL a quick rebuttal on your questions. Then I'll go and take questions. We'll take questions from Ami Yagnik and D. Raja. Not enough time we have at our disposal. Keep it faster, sir. Yes, GVL, you know what the question is. The doubts are on the ambiguity, sir. They might not want to question the overall intention, but they're questioning the fine print. Because you have left a lot of ambiguous areas.
Yes. No, I think, you see, if the intent of the government was not to promote infrastructure and rural development, I think it would have been a sweeping change across all sectors. The manner in which these 5 selective sectors have been selected for India to develop, we need infrastructure, we need housing. Only 35% of the population in this country.
But there is merit in the opposition's argument, GVL Narasimha Rao, when they say, why do away with this 80% consent clause and the 70% consent clause in case of government and also the social impact assessment altogether? Why are you doing that?
Okay, if you don't do away, nothing is possible. You accept that reality then.
Well,
no rural infrastructure is possible.
Why do you say that?
No, it's not possible. That has been the experience. That has been the experience of 2014. Please talk to the state.
Okay, Mr. D. Raja wants to come in.
The loudest in complaining.
Mr. Raja.
Let BJP admit honestly, this is done in order to help the corporate houses and the foreign investors. That is what our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, keeps telling everybody. Make in India, make business easy. What does it mean?
No, but
they want the government.
But Mr. Raja, you know, Mr. Raja, that is your allegation. Fair enough. That is your allegation. But
let me finish.
No, but the areas that GVL is talking about, the areas that the BJP is talking about, are they not intrinsic to national development?
The government,
will we go forward if these areas are not addressed? That's what the BJP is saying.
You allow me to speak or you continue to speak.
No, please go ahead.
I will listen to you.
Yeah.
I am explaining the point. What the government is doing, government wants to create all conditions to help the domestic corporate houses and the foreign investors. The other issues, rural electrification, rural roads, everybody knows what is rural electrification or rural housing or rural infrastructure. Everybody knows, nobody objects to it. But the previous legislation, what it was talking about, social impact assessment, not only farmers, all the livelihood of all those people which depends upon agriculture should be taken care of. That is what the earlier legislation.
Sir, there is compensation adequate. There is compensation adequate enough which is being made. Isn't that a countermeasure enough, Mr. D. Raja?
Where is the concern?
Sir, my counter question to you is, my counter question, D. Raja, is, sir,
why this urgency? Why this emergency? That is why we should be very clear. We should be honest to admit.
Right, Mr. D. Raja, point taken. Running short of time, so just getting in another query from Ami Yagnik, sir. Mr. D. Raja, before I allow GVL Narasimha Rao final rebuttal, quick point from Ami Yagnik. Ami Yagnik, GVL Narasimha Rao says the states, we have given the authority, they say, even in the ordinance says, that it is up to the states. We leave it to the states whether or not they want to implement the amendments to the land acquisition bill via this ordinance. Let the states decide whether they want to be competitive or not. And he also says that it was Congress ruled, erstwhile Congress ruled states and even currently Congress ruled states, which were the first to object and say bring about these changes.
No. That is his argument, always bring in the Congress. But I want to ask him 2 questions. One is why this hypocrisy to promote land grabbing and land mafia. And the second, he has not given satisfactory answer why they want to do away with the consent clause and the social impact assessment requirement. And you see the project list, all projects under the sky are included, whether it is agro-processing, whether it is water harvesting, whether it is mining, whether it is tourism, whether it is whatever.
Aren't these important for the country to develop?
And so he has to answer.
Aren't these important for the country to develop?
Yes, of course.
Aren't these important for investments into the country? Aren't these important to make in India?
They are important.
Aren't these important to fuel growth?
Not at the cost of grabbing the land.
Where,
not at the cost of grabbing the land.
You would say you have grabbed land if you are not providing adequate compensation. What this ordinance does is also brings in 13 acts of parliament which had excluded certain areas of compensation. They have brought it under the purview of the land acquisition bill, thereby 100% reserving the right of adequate, if not more, compensation. That is what this ordinance is doing.
Yes, let Mr. GVL answer.
Yeah, okay. We will go across to GVL for closing comments on this. But can we just get the Consortium of Indian Farmers Association, because that's really crucial here. Mr. Reddy, do you see these changes, these amendments, this ordinance, this land acquisition bill as anti-farmer?
No, I don't see this as anti-farmer. You see, actually, as farmers, we have bitter experience of not paying adequate and timely compensation. This is the primary aspect which, if Mr. Modi has to take in this ordinance, it has been specifically mentioned. The one big doubt, there are two things which the Modi government should consider it. Please, while some 40-50% consent must be there, then some sort of a social auditing has to be there. See, otherwise, you see, we have our bitter experience in 60 years. Most of the so-called land acquisitions have been misused. See, whether tomorrow same thing will happen, well, it is bound to happen because states again have their own vested interest and politicalization.
Okay, so your point taken, you know, we're a little short on time, so we're going to go back to GVL Narasimha Rao to just respond to that. And GVL, it's very clear that the two sticking sore points that are coming forth are one of consent and the other one also, talking about the social impact. These are the two questions that are really coming up even from the farmers.
Madam, no. Actually, madam, first thing is timely and adequate compensation is the primary thing.
To the landowners.
Where you know, the Farmers Association 3
not
points
only
they've
to the
raised,
landowners, but also to the workers attached with that field.
Okay, so it is about not just promise of compensation, but making that compensation timely and adequate and across GVL. So you see the core areas.
Yeah.
The Farmers Association, even if you were to take out the opposition voices, the Farmers Association, their voice is that what about the compensation which should come to us on time, and there should be a certain measure of social impact assessment
and consent.
And rehabilitation.
I think
rehabilitation is another
broadly,
issue.
I find a lot of the panelists, I think the stated concerns here, I think are different from, because I think I've been able to convince some of them that the purposes for which this acquisition exemptions are being made are truly in national interest. Okay, consent clause, Ami Yagnik was saying, why don't we have 80%, 70% consent clause? If that consent clause were to be continued, there was no need to make any amendments. And there is no development possible. The choice is very clear. Go and have development, or simply stick with the law and not have any development, go for stagnation. But this country cannot afford to remain stagnant in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, because that's been the experience of 2014.
Sir, you might have a point where you say that the country cannot afford to remain stagnant. It has to move forward. There has to be development. But as we wind up the debate, please, as the budget session of Parliament opens on Monday, what needs to be kept in mind is that those farmers should be adequately, timely compensated. They should be rehabilitated, and there should be an assessment of the social impact. That is what is the key form and key points that come to the fore. Thank you very much for joining us on the debate this evening.